Welcome to another Writer's Note, where I sit here with you and tell you about all the crazy shit I'm going to be coming out with in the next few months. Can you believe that I recorded the first one of these 4 months ago? And I wasn't a big fan of it either. But this month I've got a lot of great things coming out that I can't wait to tell you about. It seems like just yesterday
that I was pulling my car up into my parking spot, returning home,
It seems like just yesterday that I was pulling the world's most average car up into my driveway from my long road trip through California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and then back home again. And I got home, and the first thing I wanted to do was write everything down, because there was so much to write. When I went on this trip, I didn't think that I'd be writing about it. I just thought this is going to be a nice chance to relax, get out, do some hiking. I was wrong. And that's about when I started to realize that I might want to write about this, when everything started to go off the rails. It's right about when everything goes off the rails when I realize that I might have something to say. And I had a few things. So I sat down at my keyboard. I told my wife, don't disturb me. I'm going to write this all in one shot. It's something I've always wanted to try. Just sitting chained to my keyboard. I almost said typewriter because, I'm old. Chained to my keyboard for 24 hours or however long it took. Well, as it turned out, I had to take a few breaks because, eventually you have to sleep. But within about 24 hours, I wrote a whole lot. And that is what turned into Not Where I Thought I Would Be, which I've been plugging in my recent videos. It was really strange though, because when I left, I thought, I've got a couple books I'm working on, nothing new coming up. And when I got back, sat down and wrote something else. And this is on top of Work of Art, An Intention of Flowers, which we'll get to in a minute, and the Heaven Enough books. Lots of stuff to report, lots of things to share. So let's go.
And now, on with the show.
Hi, welcome back to my home studio. The last time you saw me, I was working on the first book of my Work of Art series. And I'm still working on the first book of my Work of Art series. This week, I'll be re-recording a few parts of the audiobook because I want it to go out the best it can be. And it's going out this weekend. Take a look. Here, in this parking lot, is where you can find Joseph's Flowers. But upon readying this book for publication, something told me that Joseph's Flowers wasn't exactly the kind of name you give to a book. It lacks a certain style, mystery, beauty. And this is how Joseph's Flowers turned into the first book in my Work of Art series that I am now calling An Intention of Flowers. Intention, after all, is crucial in so much of life. It defies chance and declares purpose. Here, then, is just a peek at an intention of flowers. Oily pavement, thick tempera paint, a parking lot filled with history, fear, and regret. A young man named Joseph Arrio sits in the parking lot and paints the pavement with flowers. And Andy Hollis steps in it. As the new art teacher at Santa Ana High School, he's too curious about Joseph's Flowers and unravels both of their lives in his pursuit for answers. He learns that it's all part of a rite of passage, an absurd test started by Joseph Arrio's father, the suspiciously world-renowned artist named only Tom, which also connects to the drama teacher at Santa Ana High, Katie Bustos, whose daughter Desiree may or may not be dating Joseph, who is putting himself in danger from a local gang, the lot's mysterious history, and the police. Andy puts himself in danger of losing his job, his home, and his freedom. If he can't solve the riddle of Joseph's flowers, both of their lives will go up in smoke, despite any help from Winnie, the old Slovakian bureaucrat at school, or his students, or Tom himself. But is Tom trying to help? And is Joseph really up to his father's test? And is Andy really fit to be a teacher? He doesn't understand kids, can't get to school on time, and doesn't appear to care about art or families or anything. But Joseph's flowers will challenge everything Andy believes about himself, about the world, and most importantly of all, about art. Before Andy and Joseph are finished, they will witness the power art has to provide inspiration, to waken our hearts, and to shatter everything you ever believed about humanity. An Intention of Flowers is the first book in a 5-book series modestly titled Work of Art, about growing into the person you've always wanted to be, making the most of what you have to give and not just what you have, and the power in each of us when we choose to be ourselves. Work of Art, An Intention of Flowers is coming out in ebook and paperback in just 1 month, and you can find the audiobook version in December. Share it with any young artist or art teacher that may be in your life. A couple of years ago, I entered into a publishing contract with Limitless Publishing for my romantic novel, Heaven Enough. As time passed, however, we realized that we both saw this book in different ways. Limitless has been great, though. They've released me from my contract, which means that I can now take Heaven Enough, and what I'm referring to as the Heaven series, in new and exciting directions. Check this out. So, I took my wife out one day for a drive out in the desert. Not our usual weekend activity, but I had something special in mind. You see, I had a story bouncing around in my head about a man who had lost his wife, something I knew nothing about. And I wanted to find out what happened to him when love unexpectedly found him once again. At a time when I was comfortable writing complicated tales, this story seemed deceptively simple. And so Vicky and I drove along this street, California Highway 79, and I told my wife about this new book I wanted to write. Unbeknownst to her, or any of us, actually, this was my first way of expressing to Vicky that I wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. The guy who never even day-hiked alone before. Because, after all, I would need to do research in order to write the novel. I'd have to hike the trail. Somehow, Matt Murphy and me, the world's worst backpacker, were both conceived at the very same time. As for Matt Murphy, his story begins like this. On a beautiful spring afternoon, a broken man stands at his wife's funeral and hears the words, "Heaven enough." Thus begins a poem about longing, about wishing for something more. What would it be like if I had heaven enough? It reads. Matt Murphy reads these words for the first time at his wife's funeral. After a death shrouded with mystery, it is the first time he learns that she wrote poetry. He and Diva were married for nearly 20 years, yet he did not know her. A poet and lover of culinary delights, she is struck by a car and killed instantly, randomly, on the wrong side of town. When her brother, the monk, appears for the funeral, Matt is set on an unprecedented course. The two find Diva's computer filled with preparations to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, over 2,600 miles from Mexico to Canada. And she was leaving without her husband. Matt takes it upon himself to hike the trail and sprinkle her ashes along the way. What happens in the first 2 hours is dumbfounding. What happens next changes his life forever. Heaven Enough kicks off my Heaven series on ebook and paperback this November. The ebook may be available right now. Look for them both on Amazon, iTunes, and wherever ebooks are sold, and keep an eye out for the audiobook coming early 2018. Matt Murphy will return. Of this, you can be sure. For those following this channel, you may have noticed that I recently returned from a road trip across and around the western United States. What I didn't realize when I left my house, however, was that this trip would turn into my third autobiographical monologue, which I'm calling Not Where I Thought I Would Be. Want to know more? My father died about a decade ago, and in his wake left a family more dysfunctional than we ever thought possible. Each of us went our own way until the day I found myself on the highway driving north into an experience that would change the way I looked at family completely, and in the process, change myself. Which really was not where I thought I would be. Not Where I Thought I Would Be is coming soon in audio only on Audible, Amazon, iTunes, and across the internet. And that's it for another edition of Author's Note. I'll be back in a few months with more titles, including the new Max Dedge title, which I know you're going to want to hear about. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy Heaven Enough, An Intention of Flowers, Not Where I Thought I Would Be, and who knows what else is going to come up. But I hope you have a great holiday. I hope your 2017 kicks ass. And I'll see you in the new year. All the best. And there you have it. You've just survived another Ken LaSalle video. For more information about new releases, projects in the works, or even stuff from the archives, head on down to kenlasalle.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and all around social media, just as long as it's called Facebook or Twitter. Thanks for your support, as always. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll be back soon with more nonsense.